make it. So I'm Lori Wagner, and certainly officially right now, this is the largest Zoom call I've ever been on, and uh, certainly the largest one I've ever led. I taught 2 classes this morning. I teach small classes, so I'm used to hanging out with like 8 other people. And that's what I've been doing for the last 20 years. I've been teaching really small classes. I generally teach 2 a day. And so for the last 20 years, it's been just this like tumble of 8 people at a time, very intimate. This is very intimate work. And I was talking to my students this morning and I was reminding them that 20 years ago, when I started this work, I taught it in my husband's garage in his art studio, which was this really cold place. And we'd take all these little, camping chairs, like really low to the ground, and we'd be sitting on the concrete floor of the garage with a little tiny candle in the middle of the circle and some really tepid tea to drink. And that's how we did wild writing. And so I just have to thank you for showing up today, and also just be amazed that in 20 years, this work that is super beautiful and super life-changing is able to reach so many people. So I'm in gratitude of that. I really appreciate you're here. I do have a few notes just to keep me, to keep me moving forward. What I want to do for the next 45 minutes is I want to talk to you a little bit about the work and just orient you. Some of you know the work, you've done it with me before. Others, you're completely new to it. So I don't want to overwhelm you, but I want to tell you about the practice and what we're doing here. I want to talk to you about the next 7 days and what you can expect so that you can be ready for that. And then I want to do some writing together so that we can actually, get our feet wet and do this work together so that when tomorrow's video comes to you, you'll know what to do. I'm an incredibly practical person. I'm a double Taurus. And so I just want you to have the experience, and then I want you to take the experience into tomorrow. Okay. So this is what's going to happen. I'm going to read you a poem, and I'm going to read it to you twice because listening is its own muscle. And as I read you the poem, what I want for you to do is just to relax and drift. I want, I'm going to read a poem and there's going to be a word in it, or there's going to be a sentence, and your mind, something will get triggered for you. And I want you to allow that to happen. It's different than, say, when you're in meditation and your meditation teacher says, if your mind is wandering, come back to the breath. No, in this one, if your mind is wandering, let it wander, because the poem is just meant to sort of stir you up creatively and kind of like, sometimes I'm like, we're sending you like Alice in Wonderland into the forest, and the poem is just meant to sort of mix you up a little bit. And then I'm going to give you a jump off line. And the jump off line is just a way to get started. Okay. So I'm going to read it to you twice. Notice the thoughts that you have as I'm reading it. Like, you might be thinking about things that have nothing to do with the poem, and that's perfect. To me, that's your creative unconscious delivering you a gift. So we want to be paying attention to what's coming. That's what we're doing. So I'm going to read it to you twice. And your job is very simple. There's just 2 things. Your job is to take the pen and to write as fast as you can, pen never leaving the page, for 15 minutes. And I was thinking, should I do it for 10 minutes? It's 15 is a long time. Maybe just 10 for these people. And then I thought, no, because the videos that I'm sending you in the next week it's a 15-minute practice. So I thought, let's just get into it. Let's just do it. So you're going to write, and you're going to take the pen, and you're going to start with that jump off line, and you're going to write as fast as you can. And if you can't write fast, just keep the pen moving. That's what's important. Keep the pen moving, even if what you're writing is, oh my God, my hand hurts, or I need more coffee, or why did I sign up for this? Like, it doesn't matter. Just keep the pen moving and just keep writing. And what's happening when we're writing really fast is we're trying to bypass our self-consciousness. We're trying to bypass the part of us that wants to do it right, or wants to be clever or funny or smart or whatever. We always do this presentation. We want to try to put our best foot forward and reach for the stars. But what we want to do here is we want to write so fast that we can't keep up with that voice that wants to do it right. That's a lot of the healing of wild writing, is we're actually trying to stumble and not assemble. We're just stumbling. So this is going to be a practice where for the next 15 minutes, you're going to allow yourself to stumble, to say the wrong word, to say the wrong thing, to not do it right, and just to keep writing. And another part of that that is so healing about the wild writing is that when we're writing really, really quickly, we're also trying to outrun the critical voice, which we're all way too aware of, right? That voice that it's like, don't do that, do this, that's a stupid word, or don't tell that one, or you've already, it's like we're writing too fast that we can't hear that. And I think that's why partly people had told me over the last many, many years, this is so healing, because that voice is killer. That voice just kills us. No good creativity comes from that voice. If you sit down to do anything, whether it be, painting or writing or whatever, and you hear that voice, you put your brush down, you put your pen down. And so we're practicing not listening to that voice. We're practicing writing as fast as we can and writing past it. And partly that is going to be uncomfortable for some people, but that's also part of the juice of wild writing, is learning to be comfortable being uncomfortable. Learning to be comfortable being uncomfortable, because if you're creating anything, you go through discomfort. And if every time we were uncomfortable, we stopped what we were doing, we wouldn't get anything done. So we're going to keep the pen moving, keep the pen moving. And the other thing I want to say is that jump off line I give you is really, really beautiful. You're going to use the line, and then as you're writing, if you come to the end of a thought or you get tired or bored, I want you to use that line again, that jump off line again. You might use that jump off line 3 or 4 times in a piece. It's really an opportunity to just keep digging, 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 okay? So just go back to that jump off line. Or if you're feeling yourself like you're tired, like when is this gonna end? Go back to that jump off line, okay? And keep writing.
Hey,
So,
Lori,
yeah.
could you answer the question of, because I think this would be great if you addressed it, is someone asked the question of use a pen or can you type on your laptop?
So, for today, you can do whatever is best for you. But in general, we try to use our hand because it triggers a different part of our brain. Because, we're so used to on the computer, like cleaning up or going back or waiting. And with the hand, we just got to keep moving. And so there's less of a chance that we're going to try to fix something, because we're such good fixers and cleaner uppers and perfectionists. So this is a messy practice, we want to get comfortable just writing whatever's coming. So that's my suggestion for the next 7 days for certain. Try to do that. Okay. Try to use your hands. Okay. What I say to my students is really like, when I say this, people laugh. I say, please write as poorly as possible. Please write as poorly as possible, because what we're trying to do is lower the bar and just lay everything down so that we can get in touch with our natural voice, bedhead, just really showing up on the page in a natural way, because that's what we want to be, when we're trying too hard or we're trying to show up a certain way, we're distanced from ourselves and from the reader or the page. And so we're actually just trying to show up as we are. This is a human being practice. So like I said, keep the pen moving, just keep the pen moving and just keep writing for 15 minutes. And then the other thing that we try to do is we just try to tell the truth. Just try to name things as they are and not pretty it up, just try to tell the truth. And if you hear a word coming or a phrase coming, just try to write it down. Just try to say yes to what's coming, okay? Just see if you can tolerate just for you, just write what you hear and just channel it, okay? Okay. Yeah. All right. I think that's all I want to tell you. I'm going to read you the poem. And then what I've done is I've given you kind of a sample of what it might sound like. So I sat down and I just did a like riff of it. I'm going to read you the poem. And this is what I do with my students. It must be something I needed. As I read you the poem, if you like, close your eyes and just relax and just listen. I think of it like, like kindergarten, like when you're in kindergarten. And I don't know if you had this or I had this, or it was just a fantasy of having it. and your teacher's reading you something at nap time, and you're sort of just listening, sort of drifting, you're not taking notes, you're just letting the words in and letting yourself drift. So if you'd like to close your eyes, do. I'm going to read it twice, and here we go. It's a poem called Today's Sermon by Cheryl Dumesnil. Today's sermon. Today's sermon is slop buckets knocking against each other and a towel cart squeaking down the hall and grease stains worked into cracked palms. Today's sermon is red-winged blackbirds dive bombing a raven with yolk on its beak. Today's sermon is spring leaves as tiny soldiers receiving soot with open hands. Today's sermon is a $15 garage sale bike, and now the kid can ride to school like everybody else. Today's sermon is dragging grace around like a rust-eaten wagon, pretending it's whole. I love a poem like this. Today's sermon is, it's a repetition line. And part of my sort of secret hope is that when we're writing, we forget that we're writing. And so when you've got a line like that, today's sermon is this, today's sermon is this, use it as many times as you like. Here's what I scratched out just a few minutes ago before we got on the call as a way to show you like everything that is just coming up for you is perfect. Today's sermon is the way the puppy pulled my computer off the table as I was teaching yesterday and it came crashing down on the floor. Today's sermon is a loose stomach and the sound of the trash man. Today's sermon is the chicken pot pie my daughter heated up in the microwave a few minutes ago and how she just asked me if I wanted her to put makeup on my face before this call. Today's sermon is the way she said, "Okay, girl, I got your back," like she was reminding me that I wasn't alone. Today's sermon is, and so it's that's what we're going to do. I'm going to read it one more time, but the line is like, these lines are just meant to just open the thing wide and everything fits in it. Okay. Today's sermon is, one more time. And the reason I read it to you twice is so you can drift. It's just so you can relax and just know this is a come as you are party. Like everything that comes onto the page is just going to be coming from your creative unconscious. You're just going to open up wide and just listen to what you hear and just write it down. One more time. Today's sermon. Today's sermon is slop buckets knocking against each other and a towel cart squeaking down the hall and grease stains worked into cracked palms. Today's sermon is red-winged blackbirds dive bombing a raven with yolk on its beak. Today's sermon is spring leaves as tiny soldiers receiving soot with open hands. Today's sermon is a $15 garage sale bike, and now the kid can ride to school like everybody else. Today's sermon is dragging grace around like a rust-eaten wagon, pretending it's whole. So I'm going to give you two lines. One is, use that riff, today's sermon is, and the other line that's really gorgeous that you might really love is, I'm dragging grace around. I'm dragging grace around, because that really feels like poignant for today. I'm dragging grace around, okay? And just return to that line, okay? There's one more line I'm going to throw in. If you find yourself just stuck, here's a line that we always use and we love, love, love. And the line is, here's what I want you to know. Here's what I want you to know. So it's a great line because if you find yourself bored or just going like, whoa, here's what I want you to know. It just like centers you right on the page and it sort of sifts the fat from the bones. Like, here's what I want you to know. Okay. So those are your lines. It's either today's sermon is, or I'm dragging grace around. Okay. Those are your lines. All right. I'm going to time us. Take a deep breath. Let your, belly hang over your jeans or your pajamas or whatever you're wearing today. Really, we just want you to come as you are. So do your best. Write for 15 minutes, or I should say, write as poorly as possible. Please just show up as you are. I'm going to mute myself. We're going to write for 15 minutes, and I'll talk to you on the other side of it. Have fun.
Lori, it's Ellen. I got in late.
You've got a couple minutes. Keep going. You're doing beautifully. You've got a little time, but just start to move toward a kind of organic ending. Something organic, doesn't have to be complete. Mhm. If we were writing here at my table, everyone would sort of finish and look up, and then we'd meet each other's eyes, and I'd know we're done. So I can't do that. I can't do that here. You're always welcome to return to this piece if you started something and you really liked it, but that's wild writing. That's, being willing to write as quickly as you can, pen never leaving the page, even if what you've got is just sloppy mess, who knows what's coming. We just stay with it for 15 minutes because, you might write for 10 minutes and in the last 5 minutes, something actually beautiful, something you've been wanting to say. And so we stick with it for 15 minutes, really in the spirit of just, the creative unconscious, just continuing to move, and really lower the bar so we can write as poorly as possible, so we can actually show up as just our regular selves. Because, for my money, for my time, when I'm writing or I'm reading, what I want to read is, I just want to read relaxed people. I just want to read, pieces from people who are just showing up as themselves. I don't want fancy stuff. I don't want to be separated. I want to be intimate. And so this is an intimate practice. It's a way of getting out of our own way and showing up with bedhead and showing up so imperfectly, trying to tell the truth. And this practice is just such a gorgeous way to tell our stories, because it brings people in, because it allows people to see us. And that's the practice. So the next 7 days is going to look like this, and you're going to get 7 days to practice. You're going to get a video from me probably when you wake up if you're in the United States, and set aside a little time. The video is going to be short. It's going to be under 10 minutes. And then you're just going to set your timer and you're going to write for 15 minutes. I'm going to read you a poem. I'm going to read it twice. I'm going to tell you a little something about wild writing, and then just do it. 15 minutes. Boom, you're done. That's it. You don't have to share it with anyone. You can if you like, but it's really for you. And so for the next 3 days, you're going to be getting these videos. Find a time, do the work. And then, let me see. We're getting together again on the 18th. That's Monday. And I'm going to do the same thing again. I'm going to find a poem for us. I'm going to tell you a little bit more about the work. And we're going to do it again. And then after that, I think you've got 2 more videos. And so this is just a way to, you know, it's really like when we write like this, it's a way to get down with ourselves on the page. It's a way to get real with ourselves on the page. And I can't think of a better time to do that than now, when so much is coming at us and our lives have changed so much. This is a personal practice to connect with ourselves and possibly to connect with others on the page. I use wild writing for every single thing I do on the page. It always starts with this messy, show up poorly kind of writing, but in the hope of, you know, my actual voice, my authentic voice on the page. So that's what it's about. I hope you enjoyed it, and you may have been uncomfortable. Yay for that too. I want to open it up for some questions.
Hey, Lori, somebody did ask a question about what time on the 18th.
It's 1 o'clock, same time, 1 o'clock Pacific, same. And if you can't make it, we'll send you a recording of that, and we'll send you a recording of this as well. Yeah, you're welcome to get in touch if you have a question. I'm real easy to find today. Who wrote today's sermon? The piece was written by the poet Cheryl Dumasnil. Cheryl Dumasnil. I'll spell her last name Dumesnil. Cheryl Dumasnil. Today's sermon. Any questions? Does anybody have? If you know how to. Liz, are you able to see that?
Yeah, 1 second. Somebody's asking a question. It's going by. So question from Joanna. Mine kind of came as a stream of consciousness, which is of course okay, but I'm curious if for many this becomes a poem or a story.
It might, it can, you know, we try to sort of surrender to, what's that, like Dante's Inferno, like surrender hope, all ye who enter here. Like we try to lay down any sort of attachment to, oh, maybe this is this, or I'll do this. I notice whenever I do that, like, oh, and maybe I'm going to make a sort of things go flat for me because I'm too ambitious. But yes, you know, what you write can easily be turned into a poem or a story. There might be some elements of it that you really love. And so you want to come back to it, and maybe you want to type it up and just see like, oh, what did I love here? What was really beautiful for me that I want to return to? But yeah, clean it up.
Lori, I think you were kind of answering this, but do you come back to the things you have written wildly and approach them again with an editor's eye? Isabella asked the question.
I definitely do, especially if I'm writing a blog post or if I'm writing an essay or something. I'll always start with this very messy approach to every single thing I write because, you know, I'm like everybody. I want it to be good. And the minute I want something to be good, it just dies, right? Because now I'm just so like attached to getting it right. And so I start with messy, 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 messy. Here's what I want you to know. Here's, you know, today's sermon is, and just get all my thoughts on the page and spend time doing that. And then what I'll do is I'll come back to it. I'll often type it up and I'll keep wild writing into it. Like if I saw a section I really liked, I'll come back to it and I'll just start building on it.
Amy's asking, she's not clear on what happens between now and Monday. Maybe if you could just go over that again about how you'll send something out each day. Or
Yes.
Yeah.
Today's Thursday. Tomorrow's Friday. On Friday, you're going to get a video and it's going to be in your inbox. If you can't find it, check your spam folder. And if you have a problem, I think our emails, we're easy to find. It's hello@27powers.org. hello@27powers.org. If you can't find it, check your email, check your spam. You're going to get the video for the next 3 days, 1, 2, 3. You're going to write to it. And then if you can, join us again on Monday for this session as well, same time. And then the day after that and the day after that, you'll get you'll get a video each day so you can practice. It's a practice.
Question, do you keep all your stream of consciousness notes or do you dump them on a regular basis?
I don't dump anything. it's like a friend of mine says, even the stuff that doesn't seem usable, this is Alison Luterman, the poet. And I don't know that Allison came up with the compost bin, but she shared it, that any of the stuff she does that she doesn't end up using ends up in a compost bin. It might grow to be something else, to be mixed with something else. So I don't dump anything. I've got notebooks and notebooks and notebooks. And if I've written something that I like, that I think, oh, I want to return to this, I'll peel the page back or I'll put a little post-it on it, but I don't dump anything, because even if I wrote something today and it didn't seem like it had much sustenance or juice from me, it's still in me. It's alive in me somewhere. And maybe it's going to show up in 4 or 5 days. So I try to, be very gentle about what I write, and I'm not dumping anything.
Matt is asking, what do we do if we see that critical voice quickly approaching? Any tips?
Definitely. A great question. And, I would write straight into it. Here comes the critical voice. Here comes the critical voice. And, this is what I'm hearing now. And then if it just like it feels overwhelming, go back to that jump off line, and use it again. Or here's that great line, here's what I want you to know. Here's what I want you to know. As long as you just sort of want to sort of block the reaction to that and the way that voice wants to come. You just want to block it with another line like, here's what I want you to know, or go back to the jump off line and just keep the pen moving. And you might find like the first day must be like, ay, that was tough, or that was rough, or I can't shut that voice up. Second day, maybe you hear it too. Third day, a little better. Fourth day, better. It's a practice. It's kind of like it's a yoga practice. It's a running practice. It's the way that, how when you're running and you haven't run in a long time, you first get out there and you're just like chugga, and it feels so awful. The first mile just feels so hellish. And then after the first mile, you're just like, okay, now I'm just running now. That's what this is too. It's the same thing. Honestly, if you've come here today, it's because you want to write, you want to do something. You don't know what you want to do, but you want to meet yourself on the page. And so you might have to tolerate a little discomfort to just find your way there, to be like soft and gentle with yourself so that you can make some room for yourself on the page.
Question, do you write with a purpose? As an amateur writer, should I hone any particular part? Her name is Maria, I believe I hope I'm pronouncing that right.
I would just say, let's let purpose go. Let's definitely not write with any purpose, except just to keep the pen moving and to try to tell the truth and to try to listen to what's coming and just try to listen to that and channel it right onto the page. That's our only purpose. Personally, for me, if I'm out in the world and I have an idea for something like, oh, that would make a really great blog post, or I want to write an essay on this, sometimes I'll sit down and I'll write with purpose. I'll sit down and I'll say, like if I had an encounter, I might start with, here's what I want you to tell you about this. And then this happened, and then this happened. But I'll purposefully take the wildness and the messiness into the purpose. Like I won't get all purposeful. I'll just open that door for that particular thing I want to talk about in a super messy way. I hope that helps.
Mary Mulliken is asking, do you have any short rituals you do mentally or physically before you sit down to do this so you can access that slack brain from which you want to write?
Great question. If I'm not running around or pouring myself another cup of coffee before I teach or something, I'll put on some music and I'll start moving, and I'll just sort of get loose, and I'll just, sort of take the word brain out and just start moving. I'll go outside, just something to sort of loosen myself up. But sometimes for people who want to use this practice, the wild writing becomes that loosening before this other thing they want to write too. So sometimes this can be that sort of stretch before the run, shall we say. I know there are a lot of runners on this call, but this can be that loosening, or I would just do something else. I would move my body and get out of my head for certain. Music is great.
And as a runner, running is great for me. Sarah, thank you for bringing that up, Lori. Sarah is asking, and I think you kind of answered this, but how differently do you approach wild writing versus when you need to produce a certain structured type of piece? Does it start out as wild writing and then gets edited, which I think you kind of answered with how you start pieces.
Totally.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, as someone who's written a lot, anytime I try to start and I'm getting serious, like I need that beginning line, I could sit there for a long time waiting for the perfect beginning line. And then maybe I get it. Maybe I get the first paragraph. I'm like, ooh, good me. And then I'm stuck again because I'm trying to assemble something. And so I'm just the kind of animal who needs to get it like really messy, messy, messy. And so if I've got an idea about something I want to write about, as I said, I might start off with like, if I want to write a piece about making pie, I might just say, here's what I like about pie. And I'll just messy it. Here's what I love about pie. And I remember that pie I made, it's like the thing about pie is, and I'll just get so much so that now I'm in the neighborhood of pie, so that there's a potential for me to actually find my first line or find the thing about making pie that I really love. You know what I mean? So I'll just super get it messy because that's the best way for me to have the most life in it, the most creativity, as opposed to the tightness that I'll often want to bring something because I'm trying to do something. I'm trying to get away from the tightness. So
Yoda is asking, who did you learn wild writing from?
Okay, great. So about 30 years ago, I was in a class in Berkeley with a woman named Cecile Muchnek, and she was a friend of Natalie Goldberg's, who wrote Writing Down the Bones. And really wild writing is really automatic writing. It's been around for a long time and people have done it in different ways. And Cecile was teaching a very small group that I was in for a few years. And really this was my introduction to it. And I took her class for a long time. And then I started meeting with my friends, and really over the last 30 years have just sort of come to understand it. What is this? Is this a writing practice? Is it a healing practice? I'll tell you one thing that's really beautiful, which is that when you're in the spirit of telling the truth to yourself on the page and you're spending time with yourself in such an honest way, that changes you, because who you are on the page is who you are in your life. And I've noticed that in classes that, we do this work and then we get up and we go and things look a little different because we've spent time just being honest with ourselves. And that's what's life-changing about this. This is how I've seen it, because you can't keep telling yourself the truth on the page and then have a life that doesn't match that enough. It changes you. So I've just, sort of morphed it over the years to understand what we're doing here and what the potential is. This is a freedom practice. This is a freedom practice, getting free.
A couple people missed the beginning. Just to let everybody know, a full recording will go out to everybody via email after this is all done.
Yeah.
Let me see if there's any more.
Thank you for your questions.
Beth, I think she answered where she learned the wild writing practice from. Is there a difference, Susan is asking, is there a difference between telling the truth and stream of consciousness?
That's an interesting question. I've never heard of it like that. Stream of difference, stream of consciousness. You know what? I think we have to open the stream to let what comes. Sometimes it's going to be true. Sometimes maybe not so true. You'll find out, you'll know what's true as it's coming. I think the stream of consciousness is nice because what happens is that if you really allow yourself to write as quickly as possible, things are coming that you might not have wanted to have come. You might, have a word or a phrase that comes and you might not have wanted that, but because you're willing to write down what you hear, there's a kind of honesty to it that is very fresh and very free. And there was something else I wanted to say about that, but I don't remember. So I hope that's helpful. We really just want to get out of our own way. We want to get out of our own way. And when we talk about telling the truth, I think, there's a difference between sort of airing our dirty laundry, like I've got this big confession and this the truth. Like sometimes it's that, but sometimes when I'm talking about for myself, telling the truth, what I'm talking about is like just naming things as they are. Like I'm lonely. I'm lonely. Or last night I was playing cards with my daughter and I lost again. I lose every time to her. And I made this face and she looked at me and I just said, I'm just sad and lonely. I'm just sad and lonely. And so like sometimes that's what telling the truth is. It doesn't have to be the biggest thing in the world. It's just like look at the time we're living in, you know. I'm just sad and lonely. You know, like that's what I'm talking about. And so when your stream of consciousing, you're allowing yourself to say things you might not have said that might be surprising and beautiful and scary too.
Lynn is asking, she writes for a living. This all feels very radical, really hard to get the inner voice editor to quiet down. Any tips for how to handle that voice?
Again, you know, I think that this is the practice we're in, and it may take you days and days, but you will get to the other side of it. I have seen everyone get to the other side of it. You have to be willing to not love what you wrote. You have to be willing to write really poorly and to just have that be 15 minutes done, close the notebook and move on and come back tomorrow. You have to be willing to not love it. You have to be willing to not be satisfied with whatever, you know, perfectionist, like the perfectionism is killing us. And I say that as a true perfectionist. It's just like nothing good comes from it. And so we're making beautiful things happen on the page, but we're going to scoot in through the side door. You know, we're going to come in with, you know, ripped jeans and dirty knees. We're going to come in with a little bit of a hangover, a little stumbling. We're not going to come in perfectly and it's going to feel uncomfortable. But it's ultimately super freeing and super, super beautiful. You know, true beauty comes from that because wow, what if we could actually show up naturally on the page? And what if we could just be ourselves? And what if we didn't have to import, you know, a smarter person, a person with a better life that deserves to be on the page? What if we're just citizens and we're showing up on the page as citizens and we're greeting each other in that way? So it might take a little time if you can just tolerate it. Yeah.
I think those are all the questions. Lots of people saying thank you, that you're inspiring. I want to say you're welcome to all those who said and thank you for those that said I'm a good MC. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Liz. I was going to do this without Liz. That's what kind of a silly animal I am. I'm like, I got this, Liz. And Liz is like, I got this. I got this. So, hello@27powers.org. That's our helpline. And if you have a personal message to me, it'll get sent to me. I always tell my students this one thing, and which is I tell them, we already love you. We already love you. And so the reason why I tell them that is because I know how it is to want to get on the page and to want to be wow, 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 and great, great, great. And if we already love you, that means that you don't have to do that for us. You can just show up as you are because we already love you. So you don't have to sell us anything. You can just show up as you are and you're beautiful enough. And that's what kind of a healing practice this is. And I would tell it to you every day if I could. And of course, I have to tell it to myself. I got so nervous before this call, and a couple friends are like, we already love you. So I'm in this with you. I'm in it with you. Okay. All right. Gosh, thank you so much for showing up. I am really happy to see you. I hope this work supports you in the next 7 days, and enjoy yourselves. And I hope to see you on Monday for that call at the same time. All right. Thank you so much, everybody. Sending a lot of love. Stay safe. Be healthy. Thank you, Liz.
You are welcome. Thank
Yeah.
you, everybody.
Thank you, Elle.